But it's unbelievable that anyone in the world, anywhere, at any moment, would look at the National Post and think that this is anything but total garbage. The thing that's really funny about Kelly McParland, too, if you take a little bit of time and you actually read the article, which I don't suggest you do because you're just going to rot your brain. But if you want to struggle against it and actually, like, you know, wound yourself with the stupidity of these statements, you're going to really notice that he essentially sounds like a Disney villain, right? Like, I'm not actually looking at the article right now. I looked at the title. But, like, you read some of his stuff out loud, and I've done this on the channel. I've actually read some of his articles just as a laugh, uh, uh, straight out loud. And he sounds exactly like a Disney villain in the choice of his language, the way that he speaks. It's completely embarrassing to the National Post. If they're capable of being embarrassed, and this is the thing, I just don't think they are. I think at the end of the day, the National Post really is just the billionaire class essentially having a temper tantrum. That's really what I think we're looking at with what the National Post is and what it represents. Like, and it's really sad to watch in many ways because it's really petty and childish the way that they operate. Like this outright lie that's being said that, like, no, the money goes to shareholders, so it's a good thing. Like, I mean, they must think that we are very, very stupid and extremely gullible, which, I mean, given the way we vote, seems accurate. Uh, yeah, I just don't even know what to say about it anymore. Like, how can anyone with like a brain in their head actually, like, first of all, publish this guy, but then also read and take it seriously? Like, imagine this. Imagine that you are a construction worker, right? Like, or even better, right? Like a doctor or a lawyer, right? Like, if you're a lawyer, you might have a couple of shares in a couple of things, right? You certainly don't own 85% of the shares that are in Canada, but you might have like a couple of things here and there, right? So maybe, yeah, maybe you could read this and be like, oh, yeah, some money did come back to me, maybe enough that I could put a payment on a car. Yeah, get that payment on that truck, right? We're literally talking about people who have enough money to buy countries, right? Like, this is what we're talking about. We're talking, like, it's the scale that I think has gotten people off the rails, that they can't actually contemplate or consider. Like, they can't actually think about how much $1 billion is. They hear 1 million and they're like, that's a lot of money. Then they hear 1 billion and they go, that's a lot of money. But it's not a difference, right? There's not a difference in that. But, like, I think that the clearest way I've ever seen it shown is through time, right? How much time is the difference between 1 million and 1 billion, right? That $1 million, if every dollar were a second, $1 million would take about 10 days, a little over 10 days. Whereas $1 billion would take over 10 years, right? Like, we're talking about an amount of money that's so enormous and unfathomable that we can't actually contemplate it, which is how people like Kelly McParland play us all for suckers, because we refuse to, like, our brains simply can't grip the reality of what it means to have $1 billion. Like, if you have $1 billion, you can just own cities, right? You can just own entire swaths of countries, right? You just can. You can have fleets of lawyers on retainer. Like, if you have $1 million and you want to have like a lawyer in your employ full-time on retainer, right, costs you about $100,000, right? $100,000 annually. If you make $1 million, it's 10% of your earnings. Okay. So that means you could probably have a lawyer, right, doing a full-time job for you. Right? If you had two, that'd be 20% of your earnings. It'd be a ton of money, right? You're probably not going to do that. Okay. So you can have one full-time lawyer. If you have $1 billion, you can have 10 full-time lawyers and it barely even matters to you, right? $1 million, spend it on lawyers. Those lawyers do all your lawyerly work, right? And you don't even notice it. You made $1 billion last year. That means that you are going to have $999 million, $1 million spent on lawyers. So you can up that, right? You can get 50 lawyers. You can get 100 lawyers. You're not even going to notice it, right? Now you're structuring and building an entire economic system because you have $1 billion. You can do what you want, right? You can do what you want. And all the fines and all the stuff they're going to lay at your feet are just payments for doing these things, right? You can't actually get charged with crimes if you're a billionaire. You just have your accountants pay the fine and you move on with your life. You don't go to court. You have a lawyer do that. You just do what you want and then pay off whoever asks you to pay them off because you have $1 billion. So there's no sense of like right or wrong if you're a billionaire. There's no sense of like moral anything. You just do what you want and you put the money on the table and you pay for it. Because there is no such thing as a fine that will cripple a billionaire. If you have $1 billion, no one's going to fine you $1 billion, right? It doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. And people like Kelly McParland and the hack rag that he writes for, the National Post, which is my view is like about on the same level as the National Enquirer at this point. Like if you were to quote an article to me from the National Enquirer, I would be like more willing to take that seriously than in the National Post, I think. But Kelly McParland, all he's doing is propping up this lie that's based on our sort of structural, like literally in our DNA, we're unable to understand a number so vast and unable to understand the consequences of the vastness of that number, that we really have to go out of our way to really contemplate it and really think on it and really realize like, oh no, like once you have $1 billion, that's a huge, massive, massive, massive amount of money. Like so massive that it's beyond our comprehension. And pretending like these shareholders are just average citizens. That's really what it is. It's pretending like these shareholders are just average, normal, everyday Canadians. Yeah, you're a shareholder, aren't you? No, you're not. No, you're fucking not. I almost guarantee you're not. If you are, it's like, yeah, good for you, bud. You've got like 10,000, 20,000. Let's go crazy. You got $1 million in shares. Let's go nuts. You've got $1 million in shares. Nobody gives a fuck about that at all. Nobody gives a fuck about that at all. You're a little tiny, itsy bitsy, insignificant fish that if these billionaires wanted to gobble up, they would. And they will eventually. That's how the system's structured. The system's structured so that one big fish eventually gobbles up all the other fishes. And then it has nothing left to eat, and so it starves to death. That's capitalism, baby. That's how it's structured, and that's how it's going. And idiots like Kelly McParland, we're going to look back on these guys and be like, oh, fuck, like, how are these people getting paid for this? That's the thing that really, like, I just did a thing on my YouTube channel. It was very personal. I was talking very much about, like, monetizing this channel and the future of that and all the struggle I'm having with it and all of that. And that's fine. But really, people like Kelly McParland make me realize, like, oh, like, kind of an illiterate liar like him is getting paid to spread this propagandistic nonsense that's easy to see through. Like, you can see through it in a second. as long as you have a mind to be skeptical of it. A guy like him can get paid. I could probably get paid by telling the truth, right? People are willing to pay for moronic lies that actually run against their own interests. Yeah, they'll probably pay for somebody telling them the truth. All right, well, here's hoping. Anyway, that's the end of me. Like, share, subscribe. I'm gonna spread this one around. Yeah, hit all the bells, hit all the whistles. I'm one subscriber away from hitting a threshold, so maybe that could be you. Bye bye.